Are you in the mood for something maple, but not necessarily something sweet? Here's my slow cooker maple Dijon chicken. Comes together quickly and it is delicious. And I'll show you how to make it coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. And today is one of mine. I had a request, I think it was in a comment on one of my videos or maybe in one of the Facebook groups. I think it was the YouTube comment. Anyway, I was asked for more maple recipes, preferably something a little more savory. So this is what I've come up with. This is my maple Dijon chicken. We're gonna cook it in the slow cooker, but you can also do it on the stovetop, and I will have the instructions for both on the recipe, which will be on my blog, which is linked down below in the description box. Now the recipe makes 4 servings. Because it's only me and Paul, I'm going to cut it in half. So you can easily make this for 1 or 2 people. You can make it as a meal prep, have the chicken and maple Dijon sauce ready for your meals. It is totally up to you. You don't have to go with making a recipe for 4 if you are solo. If you're only going to eat this maybe twice in a week, or maybe even just once, you just want to try it, cut it down so that it fits with what you need. So I'm going to give you the ingredients as they are in the recipe, not as I have them here, because like I said, I'm doing half of the recipe, but I'm going to tell them to you as if I were doing the whole recipe. So there are 4 chicken breasts, about 4 to 6 ounces, you know, and a medium-sized chicken breast. They're 0 bites, 0 points, so I'm not overly concerned with the size of the chicken breasts. The 2 stars of the show, besides the chicken, which of course is the headliner, but the backup performers, shall we say, 1/4 cup of sugar-free maple syrup and a 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. There's also a tablespoon of brown sugar replacement. You could use white sugar replacement if you needed to, but there's something about those caramel notes that really pairs well with the maple and enhances it. So I prefer the brown. There is also a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Again, you could use plain vinegar if that's all you had, but there's a more mellow bite to the apple cider vinegar rather than that strong white vinegar. There's also 2 cloves or 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. You could mince your own garlic, but as you know, if you've watched this channel at all, I'm all for simplicity. So I just have a jar of minced garlic in the fridge. 1 clove of garlic is equal to 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. And I usually do a heaping teaspoon, meaning it's not flat, it's kind of rounded because we like garlic. There is a 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary, a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, and salt and pepper to taste. Now the rosemary, as you may know, is kind of like little needles, little pine needles. I'm not a fan, so I am going to crush those up a little bit in my hand just to make them a little more palatable, because I don't want them to stay long pieces. That just bothers me. You don't have to do this step. That's just me. I prefer that. I don't like seeing those long needles of rosemary. If it was fresh, well, no, even if it was fresh, I still chop it up because I don't like those long strings of it. But I will show you how to do that in a second once I bring in the crock pot. So let me get the crock pot and we'll get started. Okay, so I have my crock pot here. This couldn't be simpler. And this is only for the chicken. You can make whatever sides you want. I will probably do some rice and broccoli, maybe some carrots as well. You could do it with pasta. You could do it with just veggies. It's very versatile, but I will usually do about a 1/4 cup of rice for each serving, and that's 5 bites or 5 blue points. And that's plenty because the chicken is 0, so why not splurge on a little bit of rice? So the first thing we're going to do is just dump in all of our liquids. You can see I'm not using a liner this time. I'm okay with cleaning out this a little bit. Plus later when we're gonna want the sauce that comes from this, I don't want to have to deal with getting through the liner and making sure the liner doesn't fall in. But you can easily use a liner if you'd like. The garlic goes in. The oregano. And now what I'm going to do with the rosemary is just put it in my palm and just kind of press it and break them up a little bit. I could do this in a bowl. I could do this in my little spice grinder if I wanted it really ground up. I don't mind them in little short pieces, but those long pieces I'm not a fan of. So this looks pretty good to me. So I'm just going to throw those in, and then we're just going to stir this all up. Now this sauce doesn't thicken up too much because of the juices from the chicken cooking kind of thin it out, but we will take care of that in the end, don't you worry. Okay, so now we are going to take the chicken and I'm going to season them with some salt. Now, one thing you might notice is how high I am dropping the salt from. This is, I'll show you again more closely over here on this side. But you want to drop it from a height, not high, but like from up here. Because if you go down here, you're going to get little clumps of salt all over the place. If you go from up here and sprinkle it, rub it through your fingers, it's spreading all over the chicken. And that's what you want. You don't want little concentrated pockets of salt. You want it all over. And you don't have to be heavily salted with this because there is some salt in the mustard. So, I'm going to take the chicken breasts and lay them in. And then what we're going to do is just toss them a few times to coat them with all of that maple Dijon goodness. And that is all there is to it. Now we're going to cook this on low for 3 to 4 hours. What I'm going to do is at about the 3-hour mark, I will check it. And once it's ready for us to thicken up the sauce, I will show you how to go from there. I'll be right back. Okay, so it has been 3 hours and I am just going to temp the chicken, take its temperature. And when you are temping meat or taking its temperature, you want to go into the thickest part because this thinner end will reach the correct temperature before this thicker end does. So you want to go into the thicker end And we are at 161, which is good. You want chicken breast at 165. And this is going to cook a little bit longer once we take care of the sauce. So I'm going to take the chicken breasts out for now. And I'm going to cover them with foil just to retain some of that heat. And I'll set that on top of that. Now, for the sauce, you can see right now, it's not much of a sauce. It's more like a liquid because the cooked chicken released a lot of juices and thinned out what we had in there, getting a strong whiff of that maple and Dijon in there. So here's where you have a couple of options. If you want this to be a true zero bite food, you can take the sauce out of the crock pot, put it in a small pan and put it on the stovetop and allow it to thicken that way. Heat it up, let some of that moisture evaporate so it thickens. If you do it that way, that would be a zero bite chicken breast with the sauce. But I'm going to show you the way I did it in the recipe. I'm going to use a cornstarch slurry, partly because I wanted to show you how to do a cornstarch slurry in case you are not familiar with that term. And also, it's only going to bring this up to one bite or one blue point. So even though I'm usually very stingy with my bites and points, I think I can deal with having one, considering what I'm going to make with it is some vegetables for 0 and then some rice for like 5. So that'd be a total of a 6-bite dinner. I think I can live with that. So you could also use some xanthan gum and thicken it that way, kind of like I did if you watched the beef stew that I did, Jenn's WW Journey beef stew in the crock pot. And I thickened that using some xanthan gum. And that thickened up really nicely. You would sprinkle the xanthan gum directly in here, stir it in, and let it thicken. But not a lot of people have access to xanthan gum. Not a lot of people want to get xanthan gum. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do the cornstarch slurry. Now in here, as long as my hands stay steady and I don't throw it everywhere, I have 2 teaspoons of cold water. You want to make sure it's cold because cornstarch will start to clump in heat. So if I were to just sprinkle the cornstarch directly on here as I would xanthan gum, the cornstarch would immediately clump up. So what you need to do is get some cold water, and it's going to be a 1-to-2 ratio. So 1 teaspoon of cornstarch is going into 2 teaspoons of water. I'm just going to mix that together, and that's all there is to it. I mean, it sounds like some big mystery, this cornstarch slurry. It sounds intimidating, this cornstarch slurry. What is this mystical thing? But it's just 1 part cornstarch to 2 parts water or chicken broth or almond milk, any sort of cold liquid that you can use to thicken up your food. Now I'm going to use my sauce whisk. This is a very special little whisk here. Yeah, I'm fancy like that. And I'm just going to put this in, drizzle it all over in there, and then whisk it with my little sauce whisk. And then I'm just going to let this cook for at least 10 minutes probably to make sure it thickens up. If in that time it hasn't started to thicken the way I want it to, what I'm going to do is turn the crock pot up to high and increase the heat so that it'll hopefully thicken a little bit more. So once this has thickened, I will be back to show you what to do next. Okay, so we are back. It's been about 20 minutes or so. So what ended up happening was I had it on low, it wasn't doing much, so I turned it up to high after just 5 minutes. It still wasn't getting as thick as I wanted, so I added another cornstarch slurry, this time using a ½ teaspoon, because the first time I'd used a teaspoon. And remember, this is for half of the recipe, so on the recipe for the 4 breasts, it'll say 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. I have some carrots, baby carrots cooking over here. I have my rice cooking. I have some green beans ready to go in with the carrots once they're done. But I'm going to show you the sauce has now thickened up a bit. It's less like a broth and more sauce-like. It's a thin sauce, but it will cool a little bit once we turn this off. So I'm going to turn this back to low, and I'm going to put the chicken back in to warm up and get coated in the sauce. And any juices that are remaining on the plate, you can add those in as well. All right, so cover that back up. Now I'm just gonna let this heat through for maybe 10 minutes, and then I will be back and I will show you the finished dinner. Okay, so we are wrapping up dinner here. I have my rice, I have my carrots and green beans, and now I'm going to add one of the breasts, and then I want some of the sauce on the breast as well as on my rice. Carry that flavor right on through. So there you have it, a maple dish that is not a dessert. This whole meal is only 6 bites or 6 blue points. Now, like I said, if you didn't use the cornstarch and you cooked the sauce down on the stovetop, it would only be 0 for that, so the whole thing would be 5. This is one time I don't mind splurging with that extra bite or point. So it's 1 bite for the chicken because I use the cornstarch. But for calories, the chicken breast with the sauce would be 232 calories. The fat would be 4.4 grams. The carbs would be 6.3 grams. And the protein would be 38.9 grams. So it is definitely a nice savory way to use maple. And I can definitely smell the maple in there. So I hope you will give this a try. And if you liked this recipe, please give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. And hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video so that you will be notified that there's a new one available. Also, comment down below if this sounds like something you'd like to try. You could swap out the maple for honey, or like Sucrin has a honey substitute, and you could try that instead of the maple. You could also maybe use a sugar-free peach preserve or apricot preserve in place of the maple. So that could be good as well. And also you could use a different cut of chicken. You could use pork chops, that would be great. So expand your horizons beyond what I've given you here. Look to see what else you can do with it. Play around with it. It is yours now to do with as you please. And I hope you will join me over on social media. Here's my Instagram handle, as well as 2 Facebook groups that I am part of. One is Recipes with Roy, that's mine. And one is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel. and Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So I hope you'll join us over there. There's lots of great tips, tricks, recipes, and support. Most of all, support. Okay, so our dinner is ready. I'm gonna go make up a plate for Paul, and then we're gonna dig in. So until next time, bye.